Hey guys, welcome to the video. So yesterday around midnight, the Studio Web and Killer Site servers went down. I have some of the Studio Web apps being hosted on DigitalOcean in the US, and I have the rest of the stuff being hosted here in Canada. So I've been using this company for many, many years now. And for the first time ever, they had a huge network issue. Their entire network went down because somebody made a huge mistake. Somebody was doing some maintenance and upgrades to their infrastructure. And around midnight yesterday, everything went down. And they didn't get it up until 9:20 the next morning, 9:20. So if you're having trouble accessing Studio Web or any of the Killer Sites network, Killer Sites, Killer PHP, how to build websites, CSS tutorial, what have you, it was because of that. This is such an unusual event. Now, I've been involved with coding in the web since 1994. I have to say, I can't remember ever a situation where the servers were down for more than a couple of hours. This is it's a unique situation. I've never witnessed this before. This is unusual. So, what can you do in that situation? That's why I use a virtual private server that's fully managed as opposed to managing my own servers. Back in the day, I used to have my own servers. In fact, at one point in time, I had my own servers in my place, literally power. I had a big line coming in. I had batteries hooked up to the servers. I was responsible for making sure everything was patched and up to date and secure. I had to, if the power went out in the building I had to make sure I had enough batteries to keep the servers up. And it was just a huge responsibility to have servers. In fact, I had companies, VC-funded companies, were hosting their sites on my servers. This is back in the 1990s. In around the year 2000, 2002, something like that, I decided that managing my own servers was not the way to go. It's not the business I want to get into. So I sold my server business. I had a bunch of clients. I sold that off essentially, and I started using managed servers. So what I did is I then bought co-location, where I rented a physical piece of hardware, a physical computer server from a company. But I was responsible for it. I paid for a service so that they would replace failing components and so forth. But I was responsible for patching and making sure that security fixes were in place and so forth. And I did that for, I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like that. And actually longer than that. But at one point I decided that I didn't want to be involved with the server administration whatsoever. Now, when you're a young nerdling, the inclination is to try and learn everything and to do everything. This is a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake. You have to pick a specialization so that you can get really, really good at that. Because if you try to learn 10, 20 different things, you're never going to be good at anything in particular. And if you're worried about the server, how could you spend your time focusing on application development and vice versa? For me, over the years, what suffered the most, of course, was server administration and maintenance. And the last straw for me was when there was some major fix that had to be done to Linux. I was using Linux servers in the end. At first, I was using Windows NT servers and Windows 2000 servers. Then I switched over to Linux-based hosting servers. And when we had to patch something in the Linux kernel, and I didn't want to get involved with this anymore. I just wanted to be concerned about my own SaaSes, my own business, as opposed to managing service. So there you have it. So we had a big failure, which is super unusual. Never seen this before. But because it's fully managed virtual private server, I didn't have to deal with the issue. I didn't have to deal with figuring out what the problem was and why it went down and all this kind of stuff. They handle that. They handle that. They handle data integrity and so forth. So that's an advantage of using a third-party server. Now, this may sound silly because I'm telling you how the thing went down for the first time ever. But you know what? In life, whether it's a server or software or your car, you're going to have issues. You're going to have issues. So the smarter individual will specialize and then hire in or contract out to third parties to take care of things. Now, what you have to do, though, is when you are doing that, when you are partnering or contracting out, you have to figure out first where your strengths lie and keep under your belt or keep under your purview or do what you're really good at. That's a better way of putting it. Let me try that again. Just figure out what you're really good at and do that, and then farm out the rest to everybody else. So with regards to managing servers and so forth, I can do stuff. I can manage servers, Linux and NT, and I could do the basic things that you needed to do, more than the basics. But I decided that was not my strength. And anyway, here I am today. And my biggest strength, of course, is putting together a course curriculum and putting together systems that make education easy for people. That's why I work with all these schools. And to that point, I will, with a very light touch I will architect systems. I will spend a lot of time actually work on UI and more UX, really, user experience, because that's where my skill is. It shines there. I can write code, and I've done all that kind of stuff before, but I find it's easier for me to find, not that it's easy, but it's easier for me to find a coder and train them up, because it's much more of a logical thing. Writing good, solid code, you just follow basic principles. Fine grading code, good naming conventions, simplified database access, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can teach that, and people can follow the formula, if you will. Whereas when you're getting into UX, user experience, yes, there's a science to that, but it's still a bit of an art, if you will. You have to feel your user experience, if you will. And it's so hard to find good UX people. It's so hard to find good programmers, but the UX people, oof, super rare, super rare. So that's why I concentrate on that whole area of practice. Anyway, just to let you know, if you were trying to access the Studio Web servers yesterday, that was Wednesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning up until 9 a.m. Eastern Time, New York, we had issues. Not only, it wasn't our server went down, it's our whole network went down, so the whole thing was offline. Now, the mistake there, I wasn't there, but the mistake there is whenever you're doing any major maintenance or even minor maintenance, you have to have in place a contingency plan where you can flick the switch and instantly reverse what's going on, just in case you have a catastrophic failure like they had. It's ridiculous that it took 9 hours to repair. The person who was in charge of that should hear the music, that's for sure, because that doesn't make any sense that it went down for so bloody long. Maybe it was a hardware failure. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, that's really bad. But anyway, no matter. Some people were like, I want my Studio Web today. I want my Studio Web today. But they were cool. Everybody was cool. They understood. A little bit of patience. We're back up and running. And Bob's your uncle.